So what was I doing there exactly? Well, everything I was doing were notes from an A major scale, believe it or not. So in our last lesson, we talked about how you could start getting into spread triads to start adding arpeggio ideas to your soloing to spice them up a little bit. So I thought before we do anything crazier, I should show you just how far outside you can take that concept without adding crazy scales, chromatic passing tones, or anything else. So basically within your A major scale, what I was doing there, we would probably think of it more as D Lydian, okay, because I'm starting on the fourth step of an A major scale, and that note is D. Okay, so if we were looking and counting up the steps in the scale, the 4 chord, or the chord you would build from the fourth step, would be a major 7. The 5 chord would be a dominant 7. And the 6 chord would be a minor 7. Now, the basic ideas I was doing there were just taking those concepts and adding and subtracting extensions. Okay, so for example, when I was doing, if I took a look at that, that's, okay, so that's the 1, the 5, and the 2. So you can think of it as a sus2 or a 9. Okay, and when I went backwards, that's the 7th step, so you can hear it in here. Okay, so it's 9, 5, there's the 3rd there. So rather than playing it in a sequential order, I'm spreading the notes around and doing weird things with them. So this is going to keep it from sounding like a conventional sort of arpeggio that you could play on a piano, because the notes would have to be fairly close together for the right hand to arpeggiate that. So if we put it together, now the other one I was doing within there was I'm sort of adding like a sharp 11. So without getting really deep into theory, I'm not really going to address that today, but I might address that again in another solo, because I don't want to bog you down too much with that. But take a look at that. If you were to look at notes in this part of the neck, you know, I've got the 3rd right here, meaning the 3rd step of the D major scale, basically, to build that chord. I've also got a 9th here, so I could use that note there, okay? And then I've got, this is the 5th, right down here is the flat 5, or you could think of it as the sharp 11. I also have that here, 5, 5, flat 5, sharp 11. Okay, they're distributed everywhere. You could also take a major 7 chord from that step of the scale and add a 6 or a 13 to it. So we have one up here. You've also got one down there. So what I was doing was just kind of adding or subtracting notes that I thought were cool to make a neat sound. So what I ended up with on that one was basically a power chord, 1, 5, 1, with a 9, a 5, sharp 11, flat 5, sharp 4, however you want to think about it. And then coming back on the 9, and then here's the 6 or the 13, and then I need another note here, so I went with the flat 5, but I could have done the 3rd. See, there's all these different things if you know where your notes are. So I had 1, 5, 1, 9, 5, sharp 11, okay, 9, 13 or 6, flat 5, we'll just call it sharp 11, and then here's another 2. See, same sound as the 9 up here, and then I'm coming back down there. So we've got, there's lots of ways you could finger that. I'm using crossovers, or I guess they're really called finger replacements. So I'm crossing. I'm also crossing here to get under. You know, you could have rolled your 3rd or 4th finger to do that. You could have rolled the 1, but then you'd have to shift down. So for me, that's slower than going 1st, 3rd, 4th, 1st, 2nd, and there you go. Okay, so those are just ideas I can do with the major 7 there. Okay, and you could also change the timing of that, right? So if I were doing, let's say I'll do the simpler one first. I could go like, okay, you could also, you know, it doesn't have to be an even timing, you know, so like I could swing the timing or do weird stuff with it. So let's say if I went do do da 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 da, But people don't think about that a lot with sweep picking, which we'll talk about in a minute, but I'm sweeping those, okay? Now, what I did is I went from that shape to, so we get, whoops, and then, so if I took a look at it, same kind of start, it's this 1, 5, 9, and then in this, step of the scale, you'd have a flat 7, okay? So there's the flat 7 right there. So I've got, and then flat 7, and then 5, and then there's the flat 3rd here. So that's the same note as the minor note there, but it's just all the way an octave lower. So if I kept that going, of course you could finger this a lot of different ways, okay? So if I put that together, I've got, and I'm thinking basically major 9 is what I'm thinking. And then this one I'm thinking minor 9, so it's kind of like if I did. See, but that sounds like lounge music, but you're able to transform it, by doing. Major 7, so I'm thinking like major 7, or in this case major 9, which would be. Okay, so it's that sort of thing, but it doesn't have to turn into, a lounge party music jazz act if I don't want it to. Now I could go on from there, so the next one would have been dominant 7. So I'm sort of taking the same form where it was started with a 9. So if you were to look into the theory here, you could have a dominant 9 chord there, okay? So there's 1, 5, 9 again, and then there's the flat 7. But instead of minor, we have to have a regular natural 3rd. So you have, so we could, and then, so if I link it together, we've got, whoops, helps if you learn your pattern. Okay, now what if I wanted to get one of the big shapes over here? Well, I've got all these things I can work with. So if I look at the 6th step of a major scale, I can build minor 7s, I can build minor 9s, and minor 11s, but I cannot build a minor 13. Okay, so I have to stay away from that. But I also have I have sharp 5s if I wanted to. So I have all sorts of stuff. So if I map that out, I'm like 1, 9, flat 3rd, 1 flat 3rd, 1 9, 1 5, sharp 5. So see, I could do that if I want. So all sorts of cool things you could do with that. Or if I just wanted it a little more normal minor sounding, I could, and then maybe I'll go flat, 5, flat 7, 9, okay? So you have all these different options that you can play around with there. And that all just comes from a major scale. Nothing crazier about it. Okay, now let's talk a little bit about the technique. So I was sweeping all of that stuff. Now, the funny thing is, I kind of got into this idea by trying to make the sweeping easier. So let me explain it a little bit. Let's say if I had an arpeggio where I had to go. So the picking, if you were to take a look at it, I would have had to go down sweep through 4 strings. And then I don't want to hit this note again, which isn't a bad sound, but it's not what you normally hear on a piano, okay? So maybe it's not ideal unless you want something kind of weird. So what you'd have to do is string skip over the note. So you'd be going like that. Well, what if I don't want to deal with that? Well, the easy way to do it would be to put a second note on the outside strings of the pattern. Okay, and that's what kind of triggered the whole idea, is I'm thinking, okay, well, if I've got this guy over here and I want to go, Okay, then what do? I need another note so that I can repick the high E string and start the up sweep, but not have it sound like I hit the string twice, because then the note changes. That's the trick. So in economy picking, we'll deal with this on some other lesson. On economy picking, you know, odd numbers, so 1, 3, 5, 7 on a string, keep the pick moving in this direction. Okay, so down, 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 down. When I have an even number, it turns. So I need to create an even number, basically, because I've got odd numbers. I've got one pick stroke per string. So, you know, what are my options here? Well, you know, I could have gone up to this note. So I could have gone... Tons of cool ideas, you know, but I decided I liked kind of the spacey, you know, I am from the future sort of sound of... really cool. Really neat. A lot of stuff you can do with it. And that's kind of the approach Frank Gambale uses. So rather than do your standard, you know, my arpeggio must go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, whatever, try just coming up with interesting ideas where you spread, you kind of distribute the notes of the arpeggio in unconventional ways, and it will break it up and not sound normal. Now, is there validity to the other ones? Sure. If you're doing, you know, neoclassical metal, you know, it's built on arpeggios that are like minor arpeggios, 1 flat 3 5, 1 flat 3 5, repeating or possibly inverted. Okay, the notes in a different, starting in a different point within that series. Okay, but still in sequential order. Or whole diminished chords. Those are the most common. Now, it's a big part of that sound and the vocabulary, so if you don't do that, it's going to sound like you're doing something weird like jazz fusion or progressive, you know, rock or something. So those are some of the ideas with that. Now, can you take this idea and do other stuff with it? Sure. I mean, like when I was doing the, so like down sweep, up sweep. Now, I could have totally just Satriani this thing and gone, right? So I'm doing like hammers, pull off, hammer. Okay. I could have also done something where I did a combination of like Swibert picking. So I could have gone like, so I'm going sweep, the first two, hybrid pick that, and then maybe pull off, hammer, hammer. I just wanted to give you some options and some ideas, and maybe the next time we will start taking a look at playing outside, okay, which is not playing out in your yard, unless your neighbors really like you. You probably don't want to do that. It means adding things that are not inside of the diatonic scale that we've been studying. That's kind of the next step to take. Thanks, guys.